From the NewsChannel 5 Network, this is Open Line.
Hey everybody, Rhori Johnston with you on Open Line on this Thursday night, August 20th. Appreciate you joining us here on NewsChannel 5 Plus, all our regular viewers and perhaps some new viewers. Tonight, we are going to talk the Democratic National Convention, which, as you know, if you follow politics or any news this week, it will wrap up tonight when Joe Biden, former vice president, will formally accept his nomination and he will give his big speech. Obviously, though, this year is a bit different when it comes to the convention. All the pomp and circumstance and all the delegates that normally gather are not there because of the pandemic. This convention has been virtual this year. And we want to bring in one of our experts, our regular go-tos from right here in Nashville at Vanderbilt University, and that is political science and history professor Thomas Schwartz. And Mr. Schwartz, Professor Schwartz, I should say, thanks so much as always. We appreciate having you. And I want to start right off. This is really an election year like none other, like nothing we have ever seen, nothing I've seen in my lifetime. What is your take so far on how the Democratic National Committee has handled this convention? It's been a lot of pre-taped speeches, obviously a lot of social distancing, and not, as I mentioned, the normal pomp and circumstance that we see at a convention.
No, I think basically the party has decided to use the convention as an opportunity to bring together its more moderate and its progressive wing to try to show that it's in a unified state and that it's going into the election determined to oust Donald Trump, and that one of the things the party is particularly anxious to do is to get out the vote. That seems to have been one of the key messages of all three nights, to get the turnout up. I think the prognosis or the analysis of the 2016 election is that Hillary Clinton didn't turn out enough voters. And that if she can if Biden and Kamala Harris can turn out enough voters, they can defeat Trump, and that they're ahead in the polls now, but that they have to make sure that their voters don't get complacent. And so that one of the purposes of these nights so far has been to try and encourage people to register and to vote.
737 plus, I should mention, is our phone number, folks. As always, we'd love to hear from you. Call in with your thoughts and comments if you've seen some of it. Airing every night, 9 o'clock here Central. All three major networks and the other cable news networks are all carrying this. And generally speaking, it's been kept to 1 hour. They've gone over maybe about 10 minutes each night so far this week, and likely will go over the hour mark a little bit tonight as well. So it's interesting that you mentioned that the coming together of the Democratic Party. You know, some have criticized them. This is two elections in a row where Bernie Sanders, a more progressive Democrat, a socialist Democrat, if you want to call him that, has failed to win the nomination. The more moderate candidate has won. How does the Democratic Party move forward and convince the progressive wing and the younger people moving up, your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes of the world, that Joe Biden is the right person?
Well, I think they have an ally in that, and that's Donald Trump. I mean, basically, Trump does provide a unifying focus to the party. And even if the progressives, and many of them are unhappy with certain aspects of the platform, and particularly its failure to embrace, for example, universal health care, these sorts of things, that they still feel that Joe Biden would be such an improvement over Donald Trump that they're going to vote for him and that they're going to work for him. And certainly Bernie Sanders this time around has been far more enthusiastic in his approach, and basically claimed victory the other night. He essentially said that he had won, and that Biden was following most of the precepts that he had already pushed for, the minimum wage, these sorts of things. So I think in that sense, I don't think they'll have as much problem with unity. But the real problem is, of course, making sure that there's enough enthusiasm in the base. I think the progressive leaders are all going to go out there and do their part, but whether there's enough enthusiasm for Joe Biden among voters, that's the key, and that'll be one of the keys to Biden's speech tonight, is that he has to he has to garner that enthusiasm. He has to gain that enthusiasm.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the enthusiasm. There's been a lot of talk about an enthusiasm gap. Obviously, this year, I don't know if there's much of an advantage as to when you hold your convention, the week before or the week after. The incumbent usually gets to have the incumbent gets the party gets the convention after, so they have a chance to answer some of the criticisms. Right. Will the Republicans do that next week, or will they be a little more freewheeling and talk more about the things they think Donald Trump has actually done for the country? I mean, the Democrats are not holding back any punches this week of their criticisms of the president.
No, they're not. They've been very, very tough on Trump, and he will want to respond. He's a man who made his career. One of the reasons he's come this far is because of his sense of what entertains on television, the reality show television style. So he's certainly going to play a role in trying to do that for the Republicans, to make the show more entertaining than the Democrats. The Democrats have had some good moments. They've also had some very slower stretches where things were maybe a little less interesting. So they're going to try and learn from that. It won't be easy. This is not a great format for generating enthusiasm. Donald Trump, of course, loves the crowd, and the absence of a crowd is a really hard thing for him to deal with. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt.
And should mention, Donald Trump says he will give his acceptance speech from the White House, which is pretty unprecedented, next week. When it comes to the Democrats this week, obviously part of their strategy has been to just hammer away at President Trump, in particular his handling of the pandemic so far this year. But there has to be a balance, right? They also have to spend some time laying out their vision. Have they done that enough?
To a certain extent. I mean, they've laid out some issues, and that they've spent a lot of time talking about unifying, and in a way, I think one of the strongest aspects of the Democratic case will be the idea that they're going to restore a certain sense of normalcy in Washington. They're going to restore a certain element of civility and norms. I think the Barack Obama last night, the whole idea that the democracy was at stake, and that what Trump represents is not necessarily bad policies, but a whole horrible approach to government and to the democracy. And so I think they've emphasized that. I think Biden has a chance tonight, perhaps, to set some themes for his own campaign and his own policies and what he'll want to do when he comes into office.
Is the question of Joe Biden's cognitive ability, is that fair? I mean, throughout his career, he's been known to slip up verbally. We've seen it. I've followed his career for a long time, and sometimes he's a very kind of down-to-earth guy. I had the chance to actually interview him in Washington about 6 or 7 years ago, and I came out of the room. The first thing I told my producer was, that guy is a pro. He was prepared, and it was only a few minutes that I got to interview him, but he was very impressive. A lot of people say he's not the same Joe Biden. Is it fair to focus in on that?
Fairness is really beside the point. The Republicans have decided to do it, so the Democrats have to have a response. And in this sense, they've got Joe Biden has to have a good night tonight in terms of not stumbling a lot and not making a lot of mistakes in the speech. The greater test for him will come in the debates and then off-the-cuff type things where he has stumbled a bit during the primaries, where he had a couple of moments that were less impressive. He is going to be 78 years old. That's as old as Ronald Reagan was when he left office in 1989. So that's a challenging thing, and I think he has to demonstrate that he has still. I mean, President Trump is only 4 years younger, but nevertheless, Trump does seem, at least in part, to be more energetic, and so it'll be interesting to see how Biden handles this.
All right, 737 plus, folks. If you would like to call in and ask a question, we'd love to hear from you, folks. So don't be shy. Give us a call. The lines are wide open. With that, we're going to take our first break, and we're going to talk more about the Democratic National Convention and other politics of the day with Dr. Thomas Schwartz, Professor Thomas Schwartz, coming up right after this on Open Line.